The world is busy messaging to your children. And it's really, really important for a parent to recognize what a powerful role you have, what an incredible opportunity you have to speak into the life on a regular basis, who you are, why you're wonderful.
Matt and Lisa, welcome back to Focus on the Family. It's good to have you.
Great to be with you again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's so nice to see you guys. This content is so rich and so important that parents need to have those updated conversations and tools. But, you know, some people, when I'm thinking about raising a daughter, I haven't had that experience. John, you've had that experience. Mm-hmm. But you guys have 4 daughters and 4 sons. So you guys are the experienced parents here at the table. And the ages are 31 to 19, if I have that right.
Yep.
So you still have quite a range of children, adult children that you're dealing with all that wonderful experience. Let me ask you this one. You stress the importance of both quantity and quality time. You know, so many people have said, Dr. Dobson used to say, it's not quality time, it's time. Your kids just need time. So give us that differential between quality time and just time.
One of the most important quality times that you can bring to your family is to guard the time that you and your wife have every week alone. And we made that a priority from the very beginning. And again, you know, kids have the capacity to suck up 100% of all of your time, energy, and ability and sanity. So what we said is we're going to carve out time every week that is just us. And sometimes that was with a door closed in the bedroom and nobody's allowed to come in and we're having coffee. Sometimes it's going out for a cup of coffee and just absolutely prioritizing and protecting that time. And that's probably not the exact question that you asked, but it's so important for the kids to see dad and mom are loving each other, dad and mom are prioritizing each other, dad and mom are enjoying each other.
No, that's really important. Lisa, maybe I can look at you for the quality and quantity time for children. I mean, did you have to create a schedule with 8 kids to say, okay, today is Bob's time, tomorrow is Betty's time?
Yes, actually. I
Yeah,
do.
no, it's
But I
okay.
didn't communicate that. I didn't want them
Yeah.
to feel like they're, in fact, my kids are probably listening right now, but
They still don't know.
How did you know the names of our kids?
Wild guess.
I still have a mental list of, okay, we haven't seen Cambria lately. Let's have you touched bases with her or any of our kids. We really want to make sure they're always on the rotation. And we talk with each other about, hey, maybe you should grab Dauntless and take him out to lunch. And hey, we just make sure that everybody has time with us. And it can be different kinds of time. Sometimes it's just going out. Sometimes it's doing a job together, working on a project together. Lots of different things that we try to do. So,
Yeah.
But I think as a mom, I really, really wanted to communicate that I have time for you and never that you're squeezed into my schedule, even if it's what it looks like on the ground, that they feel like I am here for you. And
in that space, let me ask you this question, because I'm thinking back to all 8 kids at home. And, you know, obviously some are very young, some are teens and late teens in high school. So in that moment of trying to maintain a mental routine, a mental calendar of spending time with each child, did anyone get overlooked? You know, I think if you're looking with emotion and you're saying, you know, so-and-so needs a little time, I think they bombed a test or, you know, whatever. Was there any child that flew under the radar for you guys that you look back and went, that would have been good to spend a little more time with that son?
There actually was one of our kids, but it didn't have to do with necessarily just overlooking in the course of normal life. It had to do with our daughter who was, she had a hemorrhage in utero and was born, and she's 25 years old today, but that proceeded to turn our lives upside down. And for 2 years, we were fighting for her life. And it was just every hospital visit, every doctor visit. And it was so intense that it really impacted the child that was closest to her in terms of the time that we had. And we recognized that a little later on, but it was simply because all of our time, energy, and attention was just absorbed with this traumatic circumstance that we had that lasted for it's lasting today because she's still in a wheelchair and disabled, but for 2 years it just completely absorbed.
And those are the kinds of things that can happen. I think for Trent and Troy, you know, he was a bit of a handful in high school, so he got a lot of our attention. And Troy kind of flew under that radar. And we laugh about it today because Troy got away with a lot more than Trent did because, Trent was in neon for us as the firstborn. So it even happens when you have, physically healthy children. That had to be dramatic to have a child with special needs. I mean, that does pull a lot of energy from the parents and from the siblings to be able to take care of that.
Yeah, it does. And obviously, everybody's life is filled with all sorts of things that you'd never choose for yourself. And that certainly was one of them for us. Had a big impact, but that was God's journey and his plan and path for us, and he uses it for his purposes. So we embrace it.
We asked that in the setup, this idea of liking your children. And I really like that. You mentioned it in the 2 books you did. You're the parent. You're going to love your children. I would hope that you would lay your life down for your children, right? That's what we often think about. But I would do anything for my child. Okay, that's in that love cup. Then you have, do I like my child? And, sometimes, if we're honest, they probably might be in a developmental stage where there's not a lot to like. They're trying to separate from you. Let's just say it's 15. And, they don't want to wear what you suggest they might wear to be a little more modest or whatever the argument might be. They're just in a lot of confrontation. Now, not every child's going to be in that spot, I know. But typically,
pretty common.
You're going to have
absolutely.
that. So how do you take that self-evaluation in your dad head or your mom head and go, I love my child. How can I get to a better place in terms of liking them?
One of the things that we tried to do is we just tried to anticipate that is what's going to happen. And of course, we have 8 kids, so we had some practice with the older ones a little bit. I think we got better at it with the younger set. But embracing the reality of this is a part of growing up. It is a part of the development of a young man or a young woman. They are going to go through a process of, I want to become, or I am finding out who I am. I want to become my own person. It feels so personal, but it's not personal when you stand back and look at the fact that this is a normal part of the process. And if you can get your game face on as a parent before you get there, it's actually really helpful and then you start recognizing what it is. One of the things that we did is just we would tell our kids, hey, you're going to go into this independent phase. It's going to come, and we embrace it. We're excited about your independence. And we try. Now, that doesn't mean it was, fun and games and rainbows and butterflies the whole time, because they definitely will make choices that are completely opposite of what you think they should. But
that's part of
it. That's one of the things that we did.
I was just thinking about the part of liking them and just communicating that, and some of the ways we can do that is when, let's say, a child is going through an awkward stage, let's say a teenager, but actually going up to our son. I can remember one time in particular, he was washing the eggs and he was not really happy with himself. It was obvious he's has a very strong personality that kind of grates on people and sometimes. And I just told him, I just see how faithful you are and with the little things. And I really like that about you. He just, like, you could just see his shoulders got a little broader and he just felt a little better about himself. And it was a very powerful moment. And as a parent, I thought, okay, that I didn't know how powerful that would be, but I really wanted to intentionally practice that kind of communication with all of my kids. And not just saying, I love you, but I really like that about you. I see that in you. And they really need to hear it in those
really
teen
do.
years, especially.
It's interesting. You could apply that to marriage. Do you love your spouse, but do you like your spouse? And then how do you recognize those things that your spouse does that you can say, hey, I really appreciate that. I like what you did there.
I think we look at all the billions of dollars that are spent in advertising for whatever company, and we go, wow, what a waste of money. And they're going, yeah, we're not wasting our money. We're messaging, and we want you to have our thoughts in your head. And as parents, it's so important for parents to recognize the power of messaging with your children, young and teenagers and a little bit older. The things that you speak to them regularly in terms of helping them to think about who I am, defining who you are as a person. Because the world, they're busy. The world is busy messaging to your children. And it's really, really important for a parent to recognize what a powerful role you have, what an incredible opportunity you have to speak into the life on a regular basis of your son or your daughter, who you are, why you're wonderful, what we like about you, what kind of person you are. Messaging is so
Right.
powerful. And the advertisers go, yeah, we're not doing it just one time. We're going to do it repeatedly because we want to win this game.
Yeah.
Same thing with parenting. Just embrace the power of messaging in the lives of your children.
That's so good.
Yeah. Talking today about being intentional in loving your children well. Our guests on Focus on the Family with Jim Daly are Matt and Lisa Jacobson. They've written a pair of books called 100 Ways to Love Your Daughter and also 100 Ways to Love Your Son. A lot of practical stuff here. Now, if you find value in this content, subscribe by clicking below. It'll be a big help to us.
Let's talk about sons for a minute. That's in my space of experience. But why do you encourage parents to let their boys build forts inside the house, which I love? We did that.
It's just easy to be uptight as a parent. And I have many, looking back on my parenting, there were definitely elements of, hey, you're too uptight about that, especially with the first set of 4 as opposed to the second set. But even with the first set, we had a balcony. We had this log railing that went from, the upper floor down to the living room. And we let the kids, rappel off of that and down
Had a
to...
big rope swing that they jimmied up there.
A
And
bunch of moms just went, what?
So,
And I'm not sorry. I'm
Yeah.
not sorry that we did
Yeah,
that.
that's good.
Yeah.
It gave them
Yeah.
a sense of adventure. And so
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Lisa, parenting boys can be challenging, I think, for a lot of moms. I think, Jean, if she were sitting here, she'd say, yeah, she was the only girl in the house. She felt a little overwhelmed, especially when the boys were teens and began to do things that were a little more reckless. And I can remember they were just learning to ride bicycles, and everybody's going to get mad at me for this, but I think one time I forgot to have them wear helmets, and she came out, what are you thinking? Get a helmet. Now, they're going all of 1 mile an hour, but it's true. A little safety goes a long way. But it's that kind of thing that, a lot of dads may not think about that, but moms are pretty consistent thinking about safety. Boys think and act very differently. How did those differences play out for your family as mom?
Yeah, I think our boys needed room and space to grow and make mistakes and fall and get hurt. And I just had to come to terms with that and accept it and even embrace it. And I think the payback was incredible because the boys loved me all the more for it. Like, I think the more I said, go ahead, go do it. Yeah, that should be fine. The more yeses I gave them, the more they were inclined to come to me and talk to me or run things by me.
But the big question then is, you didn't feel that, obviously, in your mental equation, that if I give this over, that they will actually appreciate my motherhood.
It was an experiment.
And so, that's where I wanted to go for the moms that are still struggling in
Yeah.
that area. That's a big speed bump. So how did you have to coach yourself? Did you have self-talk going like, no, don't say that. What I want, go ahead, kids, go jump off the rock. Fools. But,
Exactly.
how did you get yourself to that regular rhythm of saying yes rather than no?
Well, Matt and I talked a lot about these kinds of things, especially with the boys. And I'd say, what do you think of this? I'm concerned about that. They want to stay overnight outside in the snowstorm. And I was worried sick that they were going to die of the cold. Remember that? And
That seems
he's like-
rational to
he's
me.
like, nah, they'll be fine. He goes, I'll go check on them. It'll make you feel better, but they're going to be fine. And I had to trust Matt in that too, that he cares about his boys. He's not going to let anything crazy happen. And I think that was really helpful to
although
to
that
trust
particular snowstorm, I think the girls were out there too.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. See, he's counting heads. So that proves that you were paying attention. I may not have passed that test. We only have 2 kids, Where's the other one? I don't know. Matt, let's turn it to you. Dads affirming their sons. So moms letting them explore, which is really critical. I think in that context, it conveys a sense of trust when you do that to your sons, Lisa. I think Jean learned that as well. Matt, what does a father provide when they're affirming their sons?
Well, every kid wants to know that he can. He wants to learn that he can climb the mountain. He can do things that maybe looked impossible. And when you believe in the moments that a kid can't believe for themselves, or don't necessarily believe for themselves, you provide that positive context for going and doing it. I remember when Revere was on the rock down at the lake, and he just didn't want to jump off, and so I went and shoved him. No, I'm kidding. But no.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
So
Say the kidding part fast.
Another parenting technique.
No, but I was in the water, and I just said, "You can do this. I know you can do it." And he's just like, "Can I? Should I? Can I? Should I?" But he jumped off. So a parent is there to show a kid that they absolutely can conquer, they can triumph. And so I think sometimes as dads, we don't realize, first of all, the many opportunities that we have to speak strength and power into the hearts of our sons. But I also think that we don't recognize the power of our own voice in that affirming, in that, we're so safety oriented sometimes. We're like, oh, be careful, and we can be too cautious, I think.
That's true. I remember we had something here, and still do it from time to time, Adventures in Fatherhood, but it's a rappelling exercise in near Yosemite in California. And Troy and I took Troy, and we're going off the prowl. Now, never go off the prowl, something called the prowl, but it was a 200-foot rappel.
Oh, wow.
And this is the first time Troy had been at that height, and he was probably 10.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
So we're going over this thing.
Wow.
And you're supposed to keep your feet out so you don't smash the rock. Of course, he let his feet drop, and he went right into the rock.
Oh, no.
Not hard, but then he started to cry like, "Dad, I'm so afraid. I don't know what to do." And I'm holding myself in this rappel position going, "Troy, I don't have much more time." I mean, I'm not a small guy, and I've got to go. So you got to get down. And he's crying, and I had to let go. And he comes down just a minute later after sitting there spinning in the wind, crying. Wow. And he went down and he hits the ground and he goes, "That was so fun. Let's do it again." And I say to him, "You became a man in 200 feet. Well, maybe 195. But, bang, he hit the ground, and then he had fun. He did more rappelling, and he didn't look back. But that's an example of what you're driving at, and that is an affirmation that you're a young man. I mean, you can do these things. Now, I don't have that experience of the girls. So, John, I'm going to throw the question to you. You can ask it.
All right. Yeah, we had 2 boys to begin with, and that was so easy. You just have to give them room to break things and as you said, have some space. Girls required something else. Matt, you were talking about the messaging. There's so much wrapped up in outward appearance for girls. And I mean, I think that's been the case forever. But with all the messaging from advertising and social media, how did you two handle giving your girls a sense of emotional and inner and then exterior beauty and loveliness, the good stuff?
That is such a good and huge question. I kind of hoped that because we raised our daughters in a loving homeschooling family, that they would just never struggle with that. I really did. I thought, I don't want them to struggle the way I struggled. And but it turns out it's really hard.
You couldn't prevent that.
No, I couldn't prevent that. And especially with social media, I really saw the damage that the harm from Instagram and some of those other sites that inform our girls what they're supposed to look like. And so I felt like we had to do just double time to try to encourage them. You're beautiful just the way you are. I love these things about you. And we want our daughters to feel lovely, but we want it to be also not skin deep. Like, we don't want it to be all of that. We want them to feel good about who they are as people. Right. And that took a ton of messaging, specifically, and spending time with them and pointing out what's lovely about them.
I can remember Jane. She can actually remember a time period where her dad stopped hugging her and her 2 sisters. And she probably rightfully deduced that her mom and dad had a talk. And maybe mom said, "You know what, the girls are now 11, 12, probably be good for you to stop hugging them," which, again, is a generational thing, too. And it can come out of fear, mom's fear. Maybe something happened to her as a daughter. We get all that. But speak to that need to keep hugging your daughter for her lifetime.
Well, I would say yes, with a very important caveat. So in the process of my daughters getting to that young womanhood age, I can remember one time one of my daughters, and I don't remember how old she was, but she was a teenager. And I mean, I like jabbing my kids in the ribs, you know, I just do. And she was doing the dishes, and I went up behind her and went in her ribs. Okay.
Fine china?
I'm coming to the hugging part, but the thing is that it really made her mad. And she said, "Dad, I am a young woman." And I was, you know, in terms of
respect.
I had to make that transition in my mind. So relative to hugging, yes, hugging is super important. Physical touch is super important. However, in those intervening years where the independence is blossoming and blooming, they might have a season where they don't want hugs. Mm-hmm. And every child is different. I'm happy to say that all of our kids hug us now, you know, but I definitely had a time where my daughters were like, got a little awkward about the hugs. And so I don't know, it was a few years, but that's all past now. Yeah. And of course we hug. In fact, we hug so much that when spouses marry into our family that are not used to hugging, which we have a couple.
Yes,
that's kind of funny.
Whoa.
But it's good. It's good. It's positive.
No, but I appreciate that. I think, you know, we always try to say appropriate hugging. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that we have to say that now. Yeah. But it is true. You know, you want to be respectful. But it's important, I would say, for Jean, it was just that affection.
Yeah.
That you notice me, that you care for me.
Absolutely.
That's what you want to communicate, whether that's...
but the way I like to say it is, it's really important to communicate love and respect in a manner that's meaningful to the other person relative to the stage that they're in.
Hey, allow me to interrupt for just a moment here to say how much we appreciate you watching. Now, if you find value in this content, subscribe by clicking below. It'll be a big help to us. Let's go ahead and return to the show.
A major theme in your book is the idea of building your child's identity. This is so critical right now. College campuses are filled with young people that don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. And the culture, especially the progressive end of the culture, is trying to tell them they're not what they are, and convincing many of them that they're not a male, they're not a female, etc. It's such a confusing time to be a young person. Mm-hmm. But I know we want to raise happy and healthy kids, especially that are serving the Lord. How do you start planting those seeds and making that happen? And how does that connection between a successful marriage and a successful family, how does that happen? That is a big question.
Well, why don't I dive in? So one of the very important things to do, we believe, is to speak, even when the kids are young, very young, what kind of a man do you want to be? Mm-hmm. What kind of a woman do you want to be? Actually putting into their minds this vision of the future of who they are becoming. Yeah. And it's a very powerful thing for a young person to think, what kind of a man am I? What's going into who I am and how I'm building today? And it speaks to so many aspects of life in the ongoing building blocks of everyday life. There's just a lot of normal everyday life in parenting and in raising kids, but putting that vision for the future into their thinking is really, really important. That's something that we tried to do.
Yeah, that's good.
And specifically, you can say things like, son, I see you're a very kind person, and you're going to make a wonderful husband because you're going to want to be kind to your wife and kind to your kids, and that's a really powerful thing. So just really at a, not like at 2, but definitely preteen and teen years, calling out those kinds of qualities that you're a good listener, and that's a wonderful part about you that's going to be powerful.
Who the child is who God made them to be. And it's a parent's job to help a child see who God made them to be. Yeah. And God gave those gifts. He gave that personality. And it's all good and it's all wonderful. But you have to help a child see those things of themselves.
Matt, you and Lisa have 3 family mottos that your kids grew up with. I've read them, so I know them. I love these. But what are they?
Well, one of them is Jacobsons never give up.
I love that.
You don't give up. And we started speaking this into the kids at very young ages. And you know what kid wants to pick up all their toys? You know, they'll do one or two, and then it's like, I'm just done or tired. No, Jacobsons never give up. And you can go in there and help them pick up. So that's one of them. And there's always a way to get something done, because so many times a child will come to something in their life that's a roadblock to them. Oh, I don't know what to do. I can't do it. What do you do? There's always a way to get something done. You can figure this out. You can do it. You actually have the ability to figure this out. Now, I probably took this to an extreme when the kids were very young, because I even employed this in terms of them learning how to climb up on the couch as 2-year-olds, or however. I've lost track of the ages.
You taught them to climb up on the couch. But Mom, what were you thinking?
Yeah, right.
What is he doing?
But I'd show them what to do, and then I'd tell them, you can do this, and I could just remember that first pulling up with the knee and doing it. And kids can learn that they have a tremendous capacity. If you do all the thinking for your child won't have to think. And this is the challenge of the omnicompetent parent, you know. And we get so caught up with efficiency. Hey, we got to be there at 10, so, well, I'll just go ahead and do it, you know, because the kids are taking so much time. But the thing is the omnicompetent parent winds up very capable, very efficient, winds up doing everything for the child instead of just gearing down and saying, hey, you can do this, and just wait until the child figures it out. Don't do all of the thinking. Don't do all the figuring for your child.
Well, I think that I'm guilty of that. You know, I'll show them by illustration how to be efficient, and you do that over and over, and they're
good with it.
Inefficient.
They're just like, hey, we'll just wait for Dad and Mom to do it.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
You also stress the importance of being your child's biggest fan. I think we caught that theme, but you had an example where you went to a lot of basketball games that weren't your thing. I think for me it was the opposite. You know, I played football, basketball, and baseball, and I was so looking forward to, if I had sons, that they too would have a love for sports, almost irresistible, and they'd want to aim to play professional sports, because that's what I did. That was my heart.
Yeah.
And then I remember Trent going, after 9th grade football, he was like, I don't think I want to play football anymore. And I remember Jean just like squeezing my knee, like, this is your moment. And
something inside you died.
Yeah, and I was like,
right.
oh, yeah, well, that's good. That's good. You'll be healthy. Your joints won't ache when you're older like mine. So that's a good decision. But inside I was going, oh, man, you're 6'7". Can't you play football? And but it was that kind of thing. So how did you endure the terrible sport of basketball that you didn't enjoy?
I don't know where you got that. I didn't have to endure their basketball games. I probably had to endure some idiotic coaches that didn't know how to inspire and build up. Maybe some of that.
Well, that's true.
But if your child knows that you love their success, you love what they love, and you love them loving what they do, it just speaks encouragement and joy, and hey, my dad's behind me. And so I guess that would be a theme that we really tried to incorporate both in the sons and the daughters, is that we are on your team. We are behind you, and really orchestrating life decisions to prove those words true.
Yeah, it's so good. Lisa, one of the biggest things right now is being a mom, you know, the motherhood issue. And so many women, understandably, are being encouraged to go to college, go to graduate school, become a professional, do that life until you're not happy anymore, and then start a family at 37, 38, 39. There are a lot of childless women now who so regret that they bought that lie. What would you say to them, or say to all 20-something young women who are having to navigate that idea that it's an either or?
I see that everywhere, and I think that messaging is so damaging to women, because you're informed that you are only valuable when you do something great out there, and the value of being a mother is so powerful. And the thought of, I've impacted 8 lives, and now their spouses, and now their kids, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. And I think you can also challenge, well, you know, you made your choice, I'm making mine, but we have options. And I did go to school, and I did have opportunities, and I have no regrets about being a full-time mother. it is the most beautiful thing, and it's not an easy thing. It also is countercultural because it takes sacrifice. It takes laying down your life, and that's not easy. And it wasn't easy for me. It's the hardest thing I've ever done was being a mother.
Yeah.
And but I don't have any regrets.
Katie Faust is the head of a ministry, I think out of Seattle, called Them Before Us. And her context for her ministry, which we're doing a documentary with called This Is a Child, but in the context of being a parent, just, let's just talk about being adults. She said it used to be that adults sacrifice for their children. Like that. That's a worthy calling to be a mom. And she said today, children are expected to sacrifice for their adult parents. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Well, it is crazy. In fact, we're living with the aftermath of a crazy mindset that says children are an impediment to the life that I intend to pursue. Why does the Christian church need Elon Musk to say, hey, we need to have kids?
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, now I'm not advocating his particular approach to having kids. Right. But the thing is the truth of the matter is that we have bought into the mind of Satan when it comes to children. The world right now is in demographic collapse. This is true of Western Europe, it is true of Asia, and it is true, not as true, but still true in the United States. So the God that said, be fruitful and multiply, the God that said in Jeremiah 29, I do not want my people to be diminished, is the God that we serve, the God that we worship. And without God's perspective on children and motherhood, see, motherhood isn't about, hey, I'm sacrificing for a time, and then I can go and have a meaningful life. Motherhood is nation building. That is what is happening in a home, is nation building. And because the blessing is set aside and the curse, debt, is embraced. Like we just pile up the debt and we don't want the children. But the Bible says that debt is a curse and children are a blessing. We have to change our mindset about what we're doing. We are nation building. You can't have nation building without Christian families that look at the children as the image of God being spread over the whole earth. And so this is a problem. This is a huge problem, and we need to get back to celebrating the power, the incredible nation-building power of motherhood and the discipleship that a mom brings to the next generation. And all you have to do is spend about 3 seconds looking at the demographic collapse everywhere in the West and recognize that the whole world has bought into the mind of Satan, fruitlessness and death. He is the Lord of the dead. We serve the Lord of the living, and he loves life, and children are his blessing.
Well, that'll preach, I'll tell you. And those poor women who now are beyond childbirth age and the lament they have, I grieve for them because they missed out on life's biggest blessing. Yeah. Lisa, I think the fruit, we all now have older adult children, and the fruit, I saw that in Trent just not long ago. We were having a meal together, and he goes, Dad, I just really like our adult relationship. And I went, wow, that's awesome. Totally. But even the fact that he expressed it, and I love and like him so much, and Troy too. And but what a reward to have your 20-something son or daughter say that, that I like the adulting we're doing now. And it's different, and you have to respect them, and you have to, treat them as a self-determined individual, not somebody you control any longer. And they'll respond with that kind of affirmation. And the irony is, they'll want to hear what you have to say.
Totally.
And it's just like the Lord. It's like opposite of what you and your flesh think should be done. I'm going to control you until you make the decisions I want to make. And guess what? They don't. And then when you let go, guess what? They do. And that's what I've seen. How about you?
Oh, totally. I think that respecting them as adults, I love having adult kids. It's just been it's a wonderful season. It's not necessarily an easy season, so that was something I wasn't prepared for, that you're going to continue to have challenges and things you've got to grow in, ways you've got to figure out as a parent. Like, how do I parent well this season? But like our youngest son just got a motorcycle, and I'm not really crazy about this at all. But again, it was like we were saying earlier, that you have a chance to say, well, I think they're dangerous. It worries me, but okay, be safe, you know, and then hug him and have him go off and be excited that he has this adventure that he's going on. And I just pray over him a lot. But he's also the same son that's, hey, Mom, can I take you out to coffee?
Yeah,
I want to talk to you about some things.
But those are tough ones. But those are the things that you do deal with. You know, they're the decision maker now. You're just hopefully you're an influencer, but in a healthy way.
But the more we hold back, the more we encourage them and are there for them, the more they are inclined to reach out to us and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this, or this has been heavy on my heart, or how do I work through this? And combined with discretion, so that's only between, you know, the few people that need to know.
Matt, what we're describing, and I'll hit it hopefully, which is respect. I mean, that you respect your adult child. And again, it's one of those simple things that your two books address so well, and great reminders for what should be there naturally. Yeah. But it's showing respect for your child, and that comes in so many forms. And it's human nature. When you feel respected, just think of you, the viewer, the listener. When you feel respected, what does that do to you inside? It bolsters you. You come up emotionally in every way. So how do we do that?
Well, as family members, sometimes we take liberties with family members that we wouldn't take with someone else. We just somehow have a different standard. But it's really great for parents to train themselves to think in terms of respecting my children, respecting them, treating them with the same way I treat my neighbor. I don't tell him he should have bought a different lawnmower, you know, right? And the thing is that
That's good.
Is that if you can just keep your opinions to yourself, and you have to do that a number of ways, not just verbally, but your countenance, your tone, that all goes into to speaking respect into the life of your son or daughter. And if they ask you, then you've got an opening, but you don't have the right to lean in and get them to try to do what you want. And the more you grasp, the more you lean in, the more you try, is literally directly correlative to the amount they're going to pull back and not want to talk to you.
You know, I appreciate that. And I have a friend who has a son who has gone down a very different path in some of his life choices. And this friend has said, the key for us to have a relationship is for me to get to know his friends. And so I hang out with him when he's with his friends. And it's not an awkward kind of, oh, my dad's here. I think he's loving his son through his friends. Does that make sense?
Yeah, interesting.
Have you seen something like that where it's kind of a backdoor approach to maintain the relationship? It's not a, let's work on the relationship now that you're an adult.
Yeah, right. They'll run like like they're trying to get away from a zombie. If you take that approach, in terms of, and I made that mistake, right, with my oldest son. I totally did. We had this time in the car where we were driving for miles over to his guitar lesson. So we had this extended period of time in the car, and I'm thinking, great, we can go deep. We can talk about stuff, you know. And so, son, what are you thinking about now? And he's like, nothing, you know. But anyway, what I should have done is just said, hey, we're going to be in the car. Do you have some music that you're liking these days? And just listened to it and just been present with him. But I'm kind of the person, like, I don't like the 3-minute conversations at the you know, the party. I want to sit and I just want to go deep. You know, go deep. And so the more that I tried to do that, the more he would withhold and turn into himself. And so I kind of learned that I was doing it the wrong way. And I just know that the more you grasp, the less that it's like grabbing dry sand at the beach. The harder you grasp it, the more it's going to slip through your fingers. But the more you step back and just respect that other person and be genuinely interested in them, but not always try to go to the deep place all the time. The more that you're just interested in them as a person and respect them and keep your opinions to yourself, but offer them when they're asked. Yeah. Boy, does it come back in spades when they're a little older. And right now, our kids are, you know, we actually thought, hey, we'll never be empty nesters because of our disabled daughter who's going to live with us for the duration. But we always thought, wow, you know, we're just going to have this time of life when the kids are out doing other things. we see our kids constantly. They're in and out of our lives so much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
No, it's so good. And, I want to highlight something there, which is the power of observation. That's part of what you're saying.
Yes.
And that great scripture that we all know, which is to train up your child in the way he or she should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it.
Right.
That's my paraphrase version,
Sure,
obviously. But in that is a power of observation of
Yeah.
mom and dad, to be able to notice their bents, to notice what what fuels them,
Yeah.
and always that affirmation and that loving kindness toward them. And, sometimes we just take it for granted. We get frustrated, we lash out, they're not doing it the way we want to do it, whether they're teenagers, preteens, or 20-somethings. And you just have to do it differently.
Yeah. Parents get to learn and grow, and we certainly have along the way. It's not just the kids that are growing and maturing.
Tell me about your vacation and the idea of the blessing book. This is good. I like this.
So every summer, our family all gets together because some of our family members live across the country. So it's a really big deal, and it's a full week, everybody together. And we do various things to make it special, make it meaningful, because it's more than just a good time. It's also almost like a retreat. And so one idea we had was to put together what one of our kids called the blessing book. It's just a personalized leather journal that we gave to each family or single member. And in it, you have 3 questions on what are some things that you've really struggled this past year, and how has God shown himself faithful? And what are some of the joys? What are some of the answers to prayer you've seen? And
Blessings you received.
and the blessings you received. And then the third one would be, what are some of your hopes, dreams, prayer requests in the future? And we gave it to each of the kids. They had it all year long to kind of fill out, think about, talk about. And then they come together, and we had one whole morning together where everybody went around and they shared from
Well,
their...
we actually weren't sure how it was going to
Yeah.
go.
Hey, are their pages blank? That's what I'd be worried
Would they
about.
even bring their book? We weren't sure how it would go.
No, we weren't sure if
Yeah.
there'd be pushback, to be honest, in terms of like, hey, wait a minute.
Okay,
and-
can I ask you a
Yeah,
little
but-
question? Like
yeah.
during the year, did you ever say, are you putting anything in your book?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good. Because that's what I would have been doing. I would have been on them like a drill sergeant. Remember, vacation's coming up in 9 months.
Oh, totally. And in fact, it was one of the kids that on our family group chat that said, now we're supposed to bring our blessing books, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, okay, good.
That
That's
was
a
your
good
type
sign.
A
Yeah.
sons and daughters. Then the type C's, were they still able to put a few
Yeah,
things
everybody
in there?
put something. I was
No,
amazed.
that's so good.
Yeah.
And there was one daughter that just said, I don't know if I want to share this year. I've had a rough year. And I said, that's totally fine. You're not obligated to share. It's not mandatory. But by the time
But
everybody
she
went...
did anyway.
By the
that's
time everybody
good.
went around the circle, she totally shared it. And we all learned things about each other that we didn't know. Things that people were struggling with that we didn't know. And it was really beautiful. And it was for everybody to find out, everybody has their blessings that we didn't know about and challenges.
For sure.
So,
Lisa, let's end here. Explain the context. In the books, you wrote a quote, some of my best parenting happens when I'm humbly on my knees.
I had no idea that parenting was going to involve so much prayer. I really didn't. I always thought I could, I'm a practical person. I thought, okay, we'll come up with a solution. We'll come up with a system. And that just didn't hold for very long at all. And there have been many, many times where Mount and I have laid in bed at night, reached for my hand, and we just said, okay, let's just pray for this situation, pray for this child. Sometimes the Lord would bring a breakthrough in terms of an aha moment. Okay, I see what we're missing. And other times it would be just, Lord, move where we can't seem to move this child, and she needs to move. And so a lot of prayer goes into our parenting. And to this day, with our older kids, I think every day we are praying for at least 1 or 2 children that have a need or a sorrow or an opportunity, and they know. And one thing I love is our kids now, they're older, they'll call us and they'll say, okay, can you pray over this? And
That's great.
and I really, really appreciate that they know that that's going to be prayed over,
Yeah.
and that it matters.
It's beautiful. I mean, that's a great place to end today. Thank you so much for the great wisdom you've poured into us. Good stuff. And the books are 100 Ways to Love Your Daughter, 100 Ways to Love Your Son. And, if you're a concerned parent that, am I doing it right? I think we all kind of have that self-reflection. You could do the parent assessment. You can get a hold of these 2 great books, or either of them if you don't have daughters, obviously. get the boy book. But you don't want to have regrets as a parent. You want to say, I did a good job in parenting. You don't own the outcome. Your children own that outcome. And the best thing you could do is do the predictive things that will allow them to know the Lord, live with the Lord, love the Lord, and serve the Lord. If you can do that, you're in a good space. And get a copy or a copy of both by contacting us here at Focus on the Family. Make a gift of any amount, and we'll send it to you as our way of saying thank you for being part of the ministry.
Yeah, contact us today. You can either give us a call, 800, the letter A in the word family, or click the link in the description below to find that parenting assessment, make a donation, and get these 2 excellent books, 100 Ways to Love Your Daughter and 100 Ways to Love Your Son. Thanks for watching Focus on the Family with Jim Daly. I'm John Fuller, inviting you back next time as we once again help you and your family thrive in Christ.